Today we're going to cover several different stories, but the big news is the law that might have just destroyed vlogging as we know it.
So obviously that's what we're talking about, and you can still vlog. So I'm going to just kind of put it out there right here in front of the video that you can still vlog, but you're going to see it makes it so much more difficult and more complex that it's just like, is it really worth it?
So is vlogging dead in the Philippines? Well, if it's not, it just became a whole lot more difficult for many channels. The NPC, or the National Privacy Commission of the Philippines, has released new regulations that affect anyone who uses a camera to upload, post, publish, or share footage online.
So it's not saying that you cannot record. It's just you can't upload it. You can't share it. You can't post it. So yeah, if you want to go out and you're going to the beach, or you're going to, BGC, and you're just recording and you want memories, like this is just a little vacation, and you're not going to post it to basically anywhere, and you just want it for your own, memories, that's fine. But not really a lot of people, I think, are going to be doing that, or possibly they are, but this is talking about more like backpackers, people who go around the world and are like, here are my travels. Well, unless you're going to a nature preserve or some kind of an isolated area where you're just like, oh, look at this uninhabited place where nobody's ever touched foot, and the pristine beaches, and all of this stuff, then obviously that's going to be okay. But you can only do that so much. And I can see how there might be some channels who do that kind of content, and for them, it may not affect anybody at all. And maybe you need one, maybe you run into one or two people, like there's a tour guide, and you do get their permission. You get their verbal consent. Yes, it's okay. I agree to be on camera. You don't need to blur my face, something like that. Then that's fine. But for the general purpose, or for the general, vlogger who's basically like, okay, I live here, this is, I'm on my motorbike, I'm, going around town, this is the store, this is the mall. I mean, forget malls, right? Because malls are full of hundreds of people, if not thousands of people, and you're not going to blur them all out. It's a lot of work, and it's not going to look good on screen, for the viewer. Who wants to watch that? I do have a little bit of an idea, but again, anything that you want to do, it's going to be a lot of work, and you're going to have to be really creative, and it's time consuming. So who wants to spend that much time trying to find a way around making it not annoying to watch? So this is huge. This is huge. I can't understate it, or I can't overstate it.
Whether or not it's for commercial gain. This would apply to anyone posting images to YouTube or any other social media platform, even if their channels aren't monetized. It describes the camera or recording device as being capable of creating, generating, sending, receiving, storing, displaying, or processing audiovisual recordings, and can be bodily worn, handheld, or attached to a person. This includes, but is not limited to, digital cameras, mobile phones, GoPros, smartphones, and even Google Glasses. So pretty much anything that captures an image or sound. Now, it didn't specifically mention drones, but I bet that's covered too. So what do the new guidelines require you to do? In public or semi-public places that may capture audio-visual information of bystanders, vloggers have to basically do three things. First, if they're filming a specific person, they have to warn them beforehand that they're going to be on camera.
So that's not a big deal, right? Because if you, let's say, one of the things if I do go over there that I would definitely do is I would like to do interviews. I also want to be the subject of an interview, and I have no problem giving permission to be on camera for an interview. I think that would be a lot of fun, and it would also be a way to necessarily promote my own channel. But I would like to be the interviewer as well, because I want to know people's story. And it's no big deal. You sit on a bench, if you feel comfortable enough, you can, invite them into your home if you really want to, if you have a good rapport, if you kind of get to know the person. But if it's just a street interview, just go somewhere a little bit out of the way and, hey, on camera. Do I have your permission to be on camera? Yeah, okay, great, let's go. Or maybe you even have a little document or something, but I would get it on camera because then it's sort of indisputable. You know, you have that visual evidence, audio evidence that they gave you permission to be on camera. And if it's just a one-on-one, or in that, you know, same breath, if it's like a couple, you know, like a couple who are backpackers and they go around together, kind of like an Amazing Race style thing, then, you know, same thing. But I don't think that's a big deal. I think anybody would be happy to sit down with someone who wants to talk about, hey, why did you come to this country? Why did you come to this city? How's your experience been? You know, all that kind of stuff. People love that kind of content. They love stories. They love that personal sort of connection that you form with someone with a street interview. I think those are fantastic. And that would be a huge thing that I would want to do if I was there. But, you know, at the same time, it's like what we said before, or what I said before, is that you could do this in Thailand, or you could do this in Bali, or you could do this in Hanoi. You could do this everywhere else. You could do it in Portugal or Spain or Colombia, you know. So if one country like the Philippines is specifically making this harder than it needs to be and is causing people to jump through hoops, is it really worth it? Like, it's going to get really annoying. And there are so many other places that are, generally speaking, on par, like they're very similar. So unless you have heritage, or, you know, you married someone and you're, for lack of a better way to say it, if you're stuck there, then why not just go somewhere else? So I think from a government standpoint, I think this is totally unnecessary, and I hope they reverse course, but let's continue.
And that their image may be posted online. Second, vloggers need to have an appropriate privacy notice on all their online platforms, which provides details to the people who might appear in the recording and let them know how to exercise their right to object and the right to have the post taken down. Now, those first two are really no big deal. If I'm filming a specific person, I always get their permission anyway, but it's the next one that's causing the uproar.
And just like P said, I'm just going to call her P-E-A. The first two, yeah, they're not a big deal, right? You either have them sign something, you put a privacy notice in the description, or maybe, you know, in the prologue before your video actually gets started, kind of like one of those old FBI warnings. And then you just go on, you know, you go on about your business. You have the privacy notice, you have their consent specifically. It's just that person and you, maybe a camera on a tripod or something like that, and you're good to go, right? So far, not a big deal. It's something that everybody, I think, can work with.
Vloggers are required to use available technology that can mask images of bystanders, especially children and other vulnerable individuals. Well, I don't know why they added the wording especially children in there, because according to the regulation, it covers every single person who incidentally appears in the picture.
Right, exactly. Especially children. Like, okay, so you can kind of see where, by that wording, where they're coming from as far as like the reason why they might want to do this. But also I have a kind of a, not a beef, but I have a question about the word vulnerable. Like, if it covers everybody, then why do you need to say vulnerable people? Why do you need to say especially children? Basically just leave it at everybody, everyone. Like, that covers everyone, right? There doesn't need to be any kind of carve outs or special exceptions for people when it already covers everyone. And besides, like, children, okay, that's probably by law, at least in the United States, and most places, I think it's 18. But what is considered vulnerable? Like, that could change with the passing of laws. I don't expect a law to be passed to say suddenly, oh, an adult now is 17 or an adult now is 20. Pretty established that it's 18. But vulnerable people or vulnerable populations, that can be basically anybody's subjective view. And if you have enough people who, you know, get together and pass a law or complain or whatever, then you can add or remove different types of people. And then what kind of test do you use to determine if they actually qualify under that particular qualification or definition of vulnerable? So it's kind of weird. Just leave it at everybody. Like everybody needs to be blurred out unless you have specific permission for them. So, I mean, yeah, I just don't really see a way that this is going to be beneficial at all.
So what that means is that anyone who wanders into the frame, or anyone who gets caught on camera for any reason, has to have their face blurred. I suppose there's some program out there that can do it, but the only one I've ever seen can only blur one little spot at a time, and trying to cover every face in the crowd would take hours. But even if it could be done with just one click of a mouse, do people really want to watch videos with a bunch of blurs? I know I wouldn't.
And that, as far as I know, that looked like DaVinci Resolve. I think most editing programs look pretty similar to one another and can do virtually the same functions. I use DaVinci Resolve myself. It's free. That's a whole nother thing, but it looked like that, and that's what I use. So of course, if I really needed to, like if you go, like I said before, if you go to a mall, there's going to be hundreds of people. If you go to a cafe, you're going to have not only the barista, but you're going to have the people who are cleaning the tables, who are making the coffee, who are, maybe in the back stocking or whatever. There's going to be all the patrons. Like that's just going to be such a hassle. But if maybe you're going, I can't really imagine a place where you'd need to blur it, but there's probably an example of where maybe you're on the beach and it's a certain dead time of year or a less crowded time of day, and maybe there's only like 2 or 3 random people kind of sitting around. You could blur them out if they're only on camera or only on video for maybe a few seconds and there's just a couple of them. It's not a big deal. It's still a little bit like annoying. It's not super fun to watch anybody's face be blurred out because it draws your attention to it. But for sure, if you're going to be in a mall or you're going to be in a touristy place, like maybe there's some kind of monument or special event, a concert, something like that. I mean, basically it's never going to work. It's never going to work.
On top of that, according to an article from GMA News, the NPC also said that vloggers who monetize their channels must now register with the NPC.
Oh my God. Okay, so not only do you have to get consent, do you have to have a privacy notice, do you have to blur anybody who didn't give consent, who just happens to walk on screen, but you also, to monetize, have to register with the NPC. I mean, NPC stands for non-playable character, right? And I mean, that's kind of like what we're looking at here. This is absolutely ridiculous. I've seen a couple of other videos, and I'm not going to go through like trying to cut up some clips and add them in here. This is just going to be a reaction to this particular video, but there are a lot of vloggers, and anybody who's gained enough of a following, maybe they have 6,000 subscribers, they have 20,000 subscribers, they have over 100,000. Like there are a couple that I know, like for example, Pinoy Floyd. He's one that I've recently kind of found that I like. He's got over 100,000 subscribers. This is affecting everybody, and it's even for people who are in the provinces. Like people who marry a Filipina. Maybe they're missionaries. Maybe they're just doing some help, and they fall in love, and they want to showcase the more rural areas that you're not usually privy to, that you might not ever go to yourself. And there's Manila, there's Cebu City, there's Dumaguete, whatever. But there's all these different parts, right? There's like thousands of islands or hundreds of islands that make up the Philippines. So it's not just like 1 or 2 cities. It's a huge country with a lot of beaches and small towns, and people want to show that, or they want to show themselves being there and doing, zip lining and snorkeling and all this kind of stuff, free diving, and maybe looking at animals and, eating rare fruits and just anything you want to do. This is such a hassle. I cannot overstate it. This is absolutely insane. I don't know. Let's continue, because I don't really get it.
So are these actually laws or just guidelines? I've heard some people question whether the rules are enforceable, or maybe they're just a suggestion. like many of the other laws around here. Well, I checked, and the NPC actually does have the right to enforce its rules. So even if it's not actually a law that passed through Congress, you still have to treat it like one. Now, I know there's a lot of rules in the Philippines that aren't actually enforced, but you can count on the haters out there, the folks that love to cause trouble, to report even the tiniest violations because it's their mission to cause harm.
They're called Karens. They are called Karens. And it's not just in the Philippines, it's everywhere. If you are alive, you have come in contact with or heard stories about Karens. Like there's this, I forget what it's called, something shout. They're a group out of Australia. They've basically complained to PayPal, Visa, and MasterCard over video games having content that they don't like. Not illegal content, just stuff that they personally find objectionable. And and if you can't get a payment processing, done through Visa or MasterCard or whoever, like Steam, it's an online video game sort of marketplace. I don't play video games, but I do occasionally watch videos about the topic. I think it's good to be informed. I used to play video games, back in the Super Nintendo days and stuff like that, but it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. People I think should have the ability to buy and play games as long as it's legal. It's not hurting anybody else. Someone made the game, you want to buy the game. This could have been something that was affected, or Grand Theft Auto, for example, is going to be a massive, like multi-billion-dollar game. And who knows? Who could complain? Oh, you're just going around like, causing harm and other such things that I don't know about the words that YouTube allows. But, people get together, they complain, and then Visa or MasterCard or PayPal don't process your payment. Well, you can't sell the game. So that's a Karen. That's just someone who basically, and I guess there's a version called Ken, which is a man. I'm not so sure about that. I don't really hear that term very often. I think men are also Karens. But yeah, I mean, you see something you don't like and you report them. Maybe there's something like, on, for example, Bumble, you're not supposed to be promoting social media. And, you could go through, and if you see someone who is or who might be, there's a report button. Or on OkCupid, you could go through and it says, a picture has to be of the user. So if you see a nice landscape or a painting, something that's like, oh, this is this person's travels, but it doesn't include the person, him or herself, you could report the picture and say it's not the person. That's a Karen. There's so many examples of it, but like, is it really affecting you? Does it really make you so butthurt that you have to hit the report button and reply? Like, yeah, if it's hate speech or it's misinformation or it's some other way detrimental or harmful to people who might be, in the area or participating in that action or whatever, then yeah, I get it. There are some times where that might be the way to go. But just to be willy-nilly, like report and, like cackling, like, oh, this is so funny, I'm going to get this video taken down, or I'm going to get a strike against this channel, like Nintendo. Nintendo is a big time Karen as far as sending cease and desist and takedown letters. And like, they hate anybody who's, making copies of their games, hacking their switches, posting content, gameplay, like, etc. Like, I don't know. I used to play Nintendo all the time. Like I said, I'm not a gamer, but it's really sad to me to hear and know and find out that Nintendo is a huge culprit. They are a huge Karen. So we'll continue, but what she says is very, very valid.
I've already had several comments from the little trolls that say, so what you gonna do now, P, huh? Your channel's gonna go down in flames. I never understood people like that, who just live to attack others. But they sure are out there. So if I don't follow every single letter of the law, they'll make sure I'm the first to go. So why did the Philippines do this? Well, the obvious answer is because of that Vitaly vlogger, the Russian guy that ran around making a pest of himself, humiliating any Filipino he could find.
And I don't know if you guys know who this is. I watch a YouTuber sometimes called Legal Mindset, And he's an American attorney in Asia. He spends time in, South Korea, Bangkok. I think primarily Bangkok, but he also stays in BGC in Manila when he's in the Philippines. And he will generally kind of move between, 3 or 4 countries, Japan sometimes, when there is something that he specifically wants to cover. So there's Johnny Somali, who's in South Korea, and then there's Vitali, who is in the Philippines. And it's just like, these guys are such idiots and they cause so many problems. And in this case, it's like, okay, make an example specifically out of Vitali. Make sure he suffers for his stupid behavior, because it's not just stupid, it's harmful. There's physical violence in a lot of cases against people, and they call them nuisance streamers, but it's more than that. Like, what's wrong with you? So put him in jail, for 5 or 10 years. Hopefully he learns his lesson, disallow him from coming into the country in the future so that this does not happen again. And hopefully it deters other people from following in his footsteps and causing additional problems. But it would be super unfortunate if like one guy who just had a lot of attention put on him caused all of these problems and caused these like basic laws or guidelines to change to where it's affecting tens or hundreds of different content creators. Because, look, you know how the algorithm works. Like, you watch one video and it shows you other related videos that you might be interested in. So I don't have like a list of all of the Philippine vloggers or the Thai vloggers or anything like that, but there are definitely people, and almost every single one of them has made a video talking about this law because it's pretty recent. It's July 30th as of the time of this particular video that I'm recording. I think this happened maybe a month ago or so, like between 1 to 2 months ago. So it's still pretty recent. Things are still sort of fluid. Nothing is completely set in stone, but this is sending shockwaves through everybody who makes money through vlogging or basically showcasing where they live overseas, because nobody cares about a vlogger who's in like New York or LA. I mean, everybody can go there and has been there and has seen it on TV, but when it's somewhere far away across the other side of the world or South America or wherever, there's a lot of interest, especially from Western people who are interested in a much lower cost of living place. Like, that's the whole thing about me, is that I'm trying to look at different options and places where I can go, where I can make a decent US income, but have a much lower cost of living and thus have a higher quality of life. Well, I'm not settled on where I want to go yet, but this could absolutely deter me from choosing the Philippines as my destination, because I don't necessarily expect to do a lot of vlogging. I more like the kind of setup where I'm at a computer, I have my microphone, I'm more comfortable, have my headphones, can do all the editing, etc. I don't have any experience, walking around with a camera or anything like that. I did have a couple of tests where I was in my car and I was just kind of recording, but I think over time, as the channel grows, as I get more experience, as I have a little bit more income to invest back into the channel with some, a drone or a better camera or something like that, I would like to incorporate vlogging. And if that's off the table, I really need to think about, is the kind of content that I want to make going to be conducive to the environment of the Philippines with this new NPC vlogging law or anti-vlogging law? I really need to think about it. It might or might not affect me. I need to think about that. If it doesn't affect me, great. But even if it doesn't affect me, why would I go there to have these extra, guardrails on me when I could just as easily go to Malaysia, for example? So anyway, let's continue.
But there are other reasons as well, like people who go into the slums and showcase the poverty. They often catch images of children and other vulnerable people without their consent. Now, whether it's done for clicks and views or whether they're trying to shine a light on social problems, it can still violate people's right to privacy. I get that. If you're sticking a camera in someone's face and embarrassing them or filming someone who says they don't want to be in your video, you're violating their rights and they should be left alone. But here's the problem for vloggers like me. I love to do street interviews and walk the boulevard to chat with people. I was always respectful and asked their permission first, and I never had a single problem in 5 years. But if I have to go through all the footage and put a blur on everyone's face that passes by, it not only complicates the editing process, but it results in a very ugly video. Sometimes I like to make a video at the beach and pan the camera around to show you what the place looks like. But now I have to blur everyone's face, even in public? Who wants to see that mess? Remember how much you guys hated it when everyone here had to wear a mask? A lot of you refused to watch the videos until the masks came off. Well, this is even worse.
Right? I mean, that's a really good point. And that's one of the reasons why I really like this channel. She's really, really good. She makes a lot of really good points. I like the way she presents. But, that's something that I didn't really think about was the masks. Unfortunately, where I live, I still see people with masks every single day, which just kind of boggles my mind. However, it's annoying, right? It's annoying for me to see that. I'm like, I want to see your face. And it's not that I want to see your face, but when something is obscuring or blurring or covering your face, it kind of makes me wonder, what do you look like or what are you hiding? And it's like it kind of draws unnecessary attention to something that's not really an issue to begin with. So if you see, maybe people with masks or people whose faces are blurred out on a video, you don't care what they look. It's very similar, and this is kind of a thing I have, but it's kind of like why I'm on cameras, because it's not the easiest thing for me, by the way, to be on camera, just the whole setting up and transferring and syncing and all that and the lighting. Like, it's a lot more than just recording audio. But, it's like, I wonder what these people look like. I don't care what they look like. It doesn't matter if you're fat, you're old, you're bald, you're ugly, you're super handsome, you're gorgeous, or, how you dress, what colors you wear, what style. Like, nobody cares. But I'm still curious, and it's not like a huge deal. Like, it's not really a huge deal, but I hear the voice, and it's like, it kind of reminds me too, and this is stupid aside, but, a lot of the times, like, I'd be listening to a band that I don't really know. I've never heard them before. So I would imagine, let's have a band I've never heard, and, maybe it's like a boy band or Spice Girls where every member has like solo lines. And then you see a picture of the 5 girls or the 5 guys or whatever the case may be. And it's like you listen to the song and it's like, I'm trying to figure out just intuition, which face or which person belongs to which voice. I still have no idea which Spice Girl sings which parts. Like, I have no idea which one of them belongs to which voice. But I digress. That was a weird tangent. The point is that nobody wants to see blurred out faces unless it's like maybe once in a while. It's very specific situations. There's a reason for it. And it's just every once in a while. But if you're, like I said before, if you're in a mall and you have to blur out like 50 or 60 or 80 or 120 people, yeah, I mean, nobody's going to do that. It's going to be so much work just to get a couple of, you have to do all the tracking. And then it's not fun for the viewer to watch that. It's just not. It's just weird.
I think what they've done with this law is to wipe out a lot of channels that do travel vlogs and videos of touristy places. But the economy of the Philippines benefits from those videos. And a lot of you guys probably found my channel and decided to come here because you saw one of my videos. And this is gonna really hurt vloggers like me. So what about the big news outlets? They capture bystanders' images all the time. Does that mean whenever we watch an evening news story about people going shopping at the mall, we're just gonna see a bunch of blur spots? Somehow, I think the news channels will be exempt, even though they're doing the exact same thing on a much larger scale. But if you haven't noticed, in the Philippines, it's always the big guy who wins.
So I don't really know about that, and I didn't think about that. But my initial thought would be that they're, governments in some way probably back or support the news, and they have a narrative that they want to feed the public, and it needs to be approved. Maybe if they don't follow the company line, so to speak, then they could be dissolved or shut down or fined or something like that. And they're not going to run afoul of what the government deems appropriate. Not only that, but they are professional, right? And they're also showing things like news stories about, I don't know about other countries. I just know about the United States, but there's weather there. Maybe someone is like Joe Cantori is out on the beach and he's showing the hurricane and he's showing all the people running and boarding up their windows and things like that. But, or they're talking about the sports, they're doing a recap of whatever, the Lakers and Heat or the Celtics and Thunder, or, football or whatever. And of course, if they're doing a recap like on SportsCenter of a game, they're not going to blur out all the people in the stands. Like, that would be ridiculous. I think there's this kind of an expectation that the news is the news. They're not going to change things for that. But these independent content creators, the people on YouTube, the travel backpackers, the people who do all the videos on cost of living and condo tours and whatever, dating advice, things like that. She does a lot of stuff on dating too, which I really appreciate her takes, especially from a woman. She's super based. She's so awesome. Really, subscribe to her channel. And subscribe to mine too if you want to hear more of my reactions and different kinds of content, things like that. That would be awesome. But, I'm just going to continue. I may not finish the whole video because I'm doing a lot more talking than I kind of initially thought. But this is such a huge deal. This is really huge. Like I said, I can't overstate it. So I think it's important to get a lot of perspectives and a lot of individual accounts.
Now, I'm not saying that the new rule is necessarily a bad thing, but I can say it'll drastically affect my style and my channel and add even more hurdles. So what do I plan to do? Well, if I can't do my interviews anymore or film tourist spots or basically film anything outside my own studio where there's other people, well then, I just won't. At least not in the Philippines. Oh well, it's not gonna stop me, and I already have a plan. So stay tuned.
Okay, so she's going on to another story. I didn't want to cover that, so I'm glad this part is done because this is already running a little bit long. Now, if it were me, and again, I'm just thinking about this in sort of an advanced way, or not in advanced like it's super high, highbrow, but in advance of possibly moving there. Is that for me, okay, cost of living is pretty simple and straightforward. You can show your grocery haul, you can show your electric bill, your phone bill. There's nobody on camera for those, or there's nobody that's going to be caught in your video. You just do it in your condo or your apartment. Pretty simple stuff. If you're at a restaurant, you can kind of just do a video of the table, of your dish, of the bill, things like that. It might be a little bit strange, but I think cost of living videos are really, really popular. I think people really love to watch those because if someone from the West is considering moving to the Philippines or Thailand or Bali or Vietnam or wherever, the main reason is because of the cost of living. I have no question about it. There are other reasons that, of course, people would really like to say, yeah, I'm going there because of this or that, but cost of living, let's not kid ourselves. That is the main reason people would move to a developing country. And that includes, again, South America, wherever it might be, Colombia, Costa Rica, different kinds of places like that, Mexico. So, you could do cost of living videos. You could also do condo tours because you're probably going to be shown a place. Now, when you're in the lobby or you're at the pool, actually, I've noticed that in a lot of videos, the pools, the rooftop gardens, the gyms might have one or two people, and chances are you're not really you could probably do it in a way where either there's nobody there or they're on a treadmill, they're facing the window, you're not seeing their face anyway, you're just seeing the back of their head. So I think that wouldn't be that big of a deal. The pools are almost always empty. Like, it's a big selling point, but nobody actually uses them outside of maybe like the first week or so that they're living there, because it's like, oh, a pool, that's awesome, I'm going to use it all the time. And then obviously it like never gets used for whatever reason. It's closed, it's dirty, people just don't want to, be out in the hot sun. They have other things to do. But I think that would be something condo tours, because all you would really need is just the privacy notice and the consent of like the property manager or the real estate agent or whatever. And then of course you would also have to register with the NPC. I don't know what goes into that. It's probably not a big deal, but it's just kind of an unnecessary step that other countries don't require. So why would you go through the extra hassle when you don't actually have to? There's also other things you could do. Like I said, if you go to a not a touristy hotspot, if you go to like a more remote sort of area, you could totally do vlogs on that. You could do drone shots. It would have to be maybe more strategic, but I don't think there would be any real reason why you would need to have a whole bunch of people in there that you have to blur out. And of course, one or two little blurs here or there, I don't think that's that big of a deal. Nobody would really care, and it wouldn't even be that much of an issue. And if you don't know how to blur out something and do the motion tracking, that would be a really great opportunity to find some tutorials. There's a bunch of tutorials on YouTube on how to do that. And it would be kind of cool just to add that little tool to your tool belt. And then, there's other things you could do as well. There's other kinds of videos, but you would have to be creative. One thing she does that I really like is she does a mailbag. So people comment, they ask her questions, they email her, they send her direct messages on Instagram or X or whatever. And they're like, hey, this is my situation, or what do you think about this? Or what's your opinion on this? And then she can do a whole episode where she reads off user questions and then gives her opinions on it, which I think is super smart, because she's a huge channel, almost 500,000 subscribers at the time of this video. And of course, bigger channels tend to grow exponentially more. Like getting started is the hard part. So she's going to be fine. And like, yeah, she might be able to go to other countries and just, she can go to Singapore, she can go to Hong Kong, she can go to wherever Filipino passports allow, visa free. And then of course you can apply for a visa to go to other places as well. But yeah, it's just an unnecessary step. I don't really understand why they're doing this, and I'm going to be following it. I'm going to kind of research it a little bit more. And if there's any specific update that I find out, either through my own research or through other people's research who have done videos on it, I might do a follow-up on this, especially as it gets closer to the point where I'm really seriously going to be figuring out where I'm going to be moving to. If this doesn't seem to improve or have more wiggle room, I might just have to cross it off my list as a potential destination and focus on other places like, Bangkok, Bali, Kuala Lumpur, things like that. So that's really interesting. That's about it though. So if you like the video, please click the thumbs up, like the video. And if you want to see more content, please consider hitting that subscribe button. I would really like to get to 1,000 subscribers as quickly as possible, start making some money, reinvesting in this channel, and continuing to do things that I hope are helpful and fun and entertaining for you guys out there to watch. So that's all I have for right now. This has been 2.0. Have a great day, guys. Bye.